Okay. All right. Daniel 4. The king of the world goes to school. This is sometime before 562, which is when Nebuchadnezzar dies. Nebuchadnezzar dies sometime around 562. In Daniel 4, he has accomplished a great deal. Otherwise, I am tempted to say, otherwise he wouldn't be so. I find it amazing how little we can be prideful over. Right? I haven't accomplished a great deal, and I'm still pretty prideful. He has accomplished a great deal by Daniel 4. Somewhere before 562. In Babylon, he built the wall. You've heard of the walls of Babylon. This is the Ishtar Gate, which was built in 575 BC by his reign. It was considered one of the 7 wonders of the world. He writes, I, Nebuchadnezzar, laid the foundation of the gates down to the ground water level and had them built out of pure blue stone. Upon the walls of the inner room of the gates are bulls and dragons, and thus I magnificently adorned them with luxurious splendor for all mankind to behold in awe. And that's actually nothing. Let's see if I can do this.
Where is that thing?
That's in Berlin. That's reconstructed from the very bricks in Berlin. I forget the name of the... give me a second here. I want to find something. Sorry, guys. What am I doing? What am I doing? What I want to do is read this. All right. All right. The Ishtar Gate was the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon. It was constructed about 575 BC by King Nebuchadnezzar on the north side of the city. It was excavated in the 20th century in the Pergamon. I was thinking Pergamon. That's not right. The history. King Nebuchadnezzar II reigned the peak of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So he's at the high. This is the best time of this empire. He is known as the biblical conqueror who captured Jerusalem. He ordered the construction of the gate and dedicated it to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. The gate was constructed using glazed brick with alternating rows of bas reliefs of dragons, bulls, lions, symbolizing the gods Marduk, Adad, and Ishtar respectively. And now we have a little bit clearer understanding of what's going on here. Well, I mean, we don't need a clearer understanding than Daniel 4. He became prideful. But this, they dig up and they say, oh, he's giving homage to these false gods, right? Meanwhile, he builds this, giving homage to the false gods, and he says, the reason I built this was that so that everybody would look on it and be full of awe. Wow! Look at this. The bricks, I'm starting over here. The bricks in the gate were covered in a blue glaze meant to represent lapis lazuli. Did you ever read that? Yeah, that's a big thing back then. Deep blue semi-precious stone that was revered in antiquity due to its vibration. Bricks would have given a facade a jewel-like shine. Through the gate ran the processional way. I don't need to read all that, other than it's symbolizing the goddess Ishtar. The gate itself depicted only gods and goddesses. So again, we read these words, gods and goddesses. Look how wonderful and beautiful it is. These included Ishtar, Adad, and Marduk. We'll read about evil Merodach today, right? Which means the son of Marduk. During celebrations, statues of the deities were paraded through the gate down the processional way. We don't need to read much more than that, but you get the idea here. Over and over again is that Nebuchadnezzar builds this thing. This is a cylinder like the Cyrus cylinder, but it's not Cyrus's, it's Nebuchadnezzar's. Of all the greatest accomplishments that he did. Oh, I built this, and I built this, and I built this. He built all of Babylon. You ever read that before? Right? Okay, so this is the time. By the way, it's built in 575 BC, so that puts us down later. I can't imagine the events although maybe I can. I can't imagine the events of Daniel 4 taking place and then he does this. But actually, I'm probably giving him too much credit here, right? But really, I can't imagine, in 576 this happens, and in 575 he does that. I hope that he's a little bit more sensible than that. Okay, so of course here we are again. So, Daniel 4. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, to all the peoples, nations, and every language, men of every language that live in all the earth. May your peace abound. I will make this note that for this man, these are just words. Because he's just a man. He can't control whether or not your peace abounds or not. This would be like the mayor of Mayberry saying, "May your peace abound." It means nothing to anybody, anywhere. Even some of you in the audience don't know who the mayor of Mayberry is. It just illustrates the point. It doesn't mean anything. May your peace abound. But I do find this interesting because how do many of the New Testament letters begin? Grace and peace to you from Nero. No, from God our Father, the only one that really can bestow peace on people. So just a point to remember. Okay, it has seemed good to me to declare the signs and the wonders of the Most High God, which the Most High God has done for me. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream, and it made me fearful, and these fantasies, as I lay on my bed, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me. So I gave orders to bring into my presence all the wise men of Babylon, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the conjurers, the Chaldeans, and the diviners came in, and I related the dream to them, but they could not make its interpretation known to me. But finally, Daniel came in before me, whose name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and whom is a spirit of the holy gods. And I related the dream to him, saying, O Belteshazzar, chief of the musicians, since I know that a spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery baffles you, tell me the visions of my dream, which I have seen, along with its interpretation. Okay, so you know this story. You've read it 100 times, which is good. You need to read it 100 more times. There will be a test. The vision is of this tree that's beautiful. All the birds and everything are flocking to the tree, and a being says, cut down the tree, but leave a little band about it. So the interpretation of it. Verse 19, Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, was puzzled for a while, and his thoughts kept alarming him. The king responded, said, Belshazzar, do not let the dream nor its interpretation alarm you. And you remember, he goes through a little bit of history, Daniel does, and then he says in verse 27, therefore, O king, may my advice be pleasing to you. Break away from it now, and your sins by doing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, in case there may be a prolonging of your prosperity. Repent, or you're going down. Verse 28, all this happened to Nebuchadnezzar the king. 12 months later, he was walking on the roof of his royal palace of Babylon. The king reflected and said, is this not Babylon the Great, which I myself has built as a royal residence by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven, King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is declared, sovereignty has been removed from you. You will be driven away from mankind, and your dwelling place will be with the beasts of the field. You will be given grass to eat like cattle, and 7 periods of time will pass over you until you recognize that the Most High is the ruler of the realm of mankind and bestows it on whomever he wishes, which is what the vision had said, right, in the dream. Verse 33, immediately the word concerning Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled, and he was driven away from mankind and began eating grass like cattle, and his body was until his hair was grown like the eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. But at the end of my eyes toward heaven, And I bless the Most High, and him who lives forever, for dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom of the earth are accounted as nothing, but he does among the earth, and no one, as in you answer to me. Lord, to me for the glory of my kingdom. So I was reestablished in my sovereignty and surpassed to me. So it doesn't seem to be closer to it, but he gets more and more. Nebuchadnezzar praise and exalt and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are true, and his ways are just, and he is able to humble. First, Nebuchadnezzar, as much as he is over God and saying that the highest of the high and the greatest, is still his name is Belteshazzar. Gods, plural. In chapter, he knew in chapter 2, which is more than he knew in chapter 1, but he knows. So, the point of the chapter is not his main point. Excuse me. This. I'm going to talk about it. He's able to humble those who walk in pride. But I believe the chapter and the section, chapter 6, is the king of the world, glorifying the king of the world, right? In chapter 10, Daniel reveals the of it, King Nebuchadnezzar falls on his face, is God of gods. 3, Daniel's friends don't die in the fiery furnace. Is that right? Yeah. In the end of it, Nebuchadnezzar is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Chapter 4, the end of it, and the beginning. Nebuchadnezzar is saying, the king of the world is saying, oh, he's the king of the world. Of somebody who's is saying there's the gods in him, but he is praising despite knowing it. Verse 25, Daniel says to him, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew all this, but you have exalted yourself against the Lord and have brought the vessels of the house before you, and he's praising the gods of silver. Darius every one of them has to do with the king of the world, the real king of the world. These chapters are really about this is because there are events that actually take place before the end of chapter motif, right? They're visions of Daniel. So I believe the main point of chapter glorifies the king of the world. Said that I could do a little off. What happens? How does this? You or they will know. Search in the New American Standard. Know that I am the Lord. If you search Standard, we'll know that I am the Lord. So it's either you or they or something. I think these are actually one, although it's. This is 5 times in Ezekiel. That's Ezekiel. You got it once over there, you got it once over here, once over there. And that's it. And you remember, God's not going to save them for anything of themselves. Then they, not I can't help but interpret chapters 1 through 6 as being like an that. I am the Lord. The king of the world is there's a real God, and he's God of gods, and look what he's done for me. does fit in with. Does anybody remember this chart? Yes. This is what I call the big picture. Yes, the Bible is about man over and over and over, man obscures himself again. And so in the creation, God showed himself, they all knew what to do. Exodus, God I don't have to go through the chart. The focal point of the Bible is Jesus Christ. Three is God reveals himself and obscures it. Here's another example. Right? That's Nebuchadnezzar finishes. God puts you where you are, and you better acknowledge him. If you don't, you're until you acknowledge me. That in the end of it, verse 37, I never his works are true and his ways are just, and he is able. So one on our first little a travel trailer. RV, do you call the RV? Yeah, okay, RVers, right? Well, we're big RVers. Ron, she said, how's it going? And she identified I had already seen. Our travel trailer is 28 feet long. It's big, but it's not as big as whose? Theirs. And you know whose theirs is? Tiny compared to these man go down the road. The had a 30,000 that's in the back of the trailer and 2 tiers in it. So he could sleep on electric elevators. He's got this brick. And then the neighbor across the street. And it's a competition. You can look around and you see these people. It doesn't matter if you're pulling an RV or Chevy or Dodge, usually, sometimes down the road. Nowadays they have the mirrors that do the trailer. What do you need mirrors to do? In these, guess where their mirrors are? Out. They look like ears. But it has the opposite effect. Big mirrors you got. It's all over the place. I don't know what you ladies know. I don't know what your crochet better than you do. Look at my big thing I crochet. You look at my crochet collection. His city, this himself. Well, first of all, it's been there for 1,000 years. He didn't build the whole thing. He built a gate and some other stuff, and says, "I built the whole thing." Joke. And it drives home the point. He's bragging about how he had made his farm so good. He's corrects him and says, "God." It didn't look like much when God himself had it. Right? But that's the attitude. We forget. Look, let me do this, right? So, New Testament talk about pride, like all of them. It's actually not about what you do. The pride was, I want what you have. That's James 4. Fight about it. You're jealous. Flee the devil. He'll flee from you. But the context is God opposes the prideful. He'll talk about be successful tomorrow. Find this place. This is what will happen. No. It says being prideful when they make those plans. Were they saying my thing is better? The thing is, I forgot to include God in my planning. To the one who knows the right thing to do, he doesn't do it. He's prideful. And God literally humbled him. And throw. That they become animals. This is God doing something. There are stories, history documents called lycanthropy. It might be lycanthropy. I have no idea. They acknowledge came back from it. Okay? Very, very mummed the word on that. Because here are the details. Yes. About keeping things around that do not work. Did you notice? You remember in chapter 2, which has a dream. That's one of them. He goes in and he tells us magicians to what? The dream and interpretation. And then in chapter not tell the interpretation. Or if they exposes them as frauds. Because they said, then we can. So in chapter 4, he actually makes it easy for them. He gives them half the job, and they still can't do it, right? Okay, but when you know it's to find ibuprofen. Because what? Because ibuprofen, I take 2, and my not work with whatever. What is Tylenol? Acetaminophen. It doesn't. Great stuff. I haven't bought a bottle of in years. Tylenol. Don't need it. Doesn't work for me. When I have a headache, I want to solve the problem. I go and either I get some sleep or this one over here, right? Same idea with, well, why in the world do you keep these things around? All I know is he's being stubborn. He's being in front of you, a man in whom is the spirit of the God who you are praising, yet you keep this baggage, right? Hebrews 11 is a story. If you want all that to be done, you use faith. So you can say the opposite is not faith. Noah, stop trying, not faith. By faith, Abraham did not obey. and did not receive the promise. Well, he received by not faith, right? Here it is. Book, chapter. No thanks. And after a year of that, I'm just going to walk away from it all. This makes no sense. You keep on holding on to not faith. Get rid of not faith. Comment or question? Anyone?
In chapter 4, almost any it would sound good, like the astrologers do.
Yeah.
God's hand in there is in there of just stop being able to even make something. You're just trying to stroke the guy's ego.
Yeah.
If you're one of his wise men, except for Daniel, because Daniel, God's behind Daniel.
Or maybe they made stuff up, but he.
Yeah.
I don't know. I you know. Yeah. About government and governor. What about Hitler? I don't know how all that works. I got some theories, but I know this. Here's a governor answering to God. Literally. That's what they all do, or they all will do. Oh, concern for rulers. Love. Here's Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar. When he heard this message, remember, he's an Israelite and a captive. He doesn't have freedom. I mean, he's back. Remember, he prays in Daniel 9, God, he doesn't want to be there. And he gets this message that his boss signed with is going to go down, and he says, he's appalled. Good for a man's soul. I love you. I don't like. The man's an evil man. That's what. Yeah, Daniel said. So here, he says, look, may my advice be pleasing to you, repent. Like walks in the room and says, what's going to happen to me? Well, if you don't repent, let him know. About talking about God. The word, these words, are not anything you add to it. What I'm trying to say here is this. You can stand up and show what God has done for you. This. Now that's the power of conversion. That's not. Those aren't God's words. But what does he say? It seemed good to me to declare what he has done for. God has done good things for me, and look what I has done for me. As you walk down the street, will heal the man who was infested. The man comes up to him. The man says, "I want to follow you," and Jesus says, what God has done for you, and he went and told, and that's the idea, right? About God, he knows the hearts of men. Pharaoh, he knew, did not repent. Herod would not repent. I just find these. It's not so much about Nebuchadnezzar, Pharaoh, and Herod, but right? God knows what's going on, right? Okay. Chapter 4, Daniel 4. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes.
Your last point about whoever, true certainly, but I don't think that might do this in the future, whatever. Very humble, Nebuchadnezzar bringing him back could kill him perfectly justly.
Yep.
And that's not our decision to make. But that if you're existing right now, God is doing the life of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
And he could have herited you the first time you did something wrong.
Yeah. As salvation, 2 Peter 3. All right, let's do this. So, 2 Kings 20. So let's go ahead and turn our little chronological study. And by the way, we'll be done with 2 Kings. But we're not done with Chronicles. Has a little bit of information. The year of the in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, that evil Merodach or says, King in the year that he became king, released Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from prison. And he spoke kindly to him and set his throne kings who were with him in Babylon, had his meals in the kingdom regularly all the days of his life, and for his allowance, a regular allowance was given him by the king, a portion for each life. Note well that he has also had children, and he will have grandson. If you turn to Matthew chapter 1 in the genealogy of Christ, verse 12, Matthew 1:12, after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah, who is this guy, that's another name for Jehoiakim, Jeconiah and Shealtiel, Zerubbabel, and we'll read of Zerubbabel. So he's had sons, and he's going to have, or at least one son, and he is going to have also Jeremiah 52. These are the last words of Jeremiah in his account. Jeremiah 52 says the same thing, although uses a different word. Actually, it's the same word in the original, but the New American Standard has translated it differently. Jeremiah 52:31, it came about in the 37th year. By the way, that is somewhere around 560 BC. That's where we are now. Okay, so we've gone down at least 2 years. It's not 3 or 4, 5 or 10. No, not yet. It came about I'm skipping that. Babylon in the first year of his reign showed favor to Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and brought him. Other passage, same word, uses the word released. Sometimes I wish they'd be more consistent. That's my personal opinion. Does anybody showed favor or? Okay, it's other than if you did the this remind you of 1 Kings chapter 8? In 1 Solomon builds the temple. He prays this prayer to God. These people have exiled towards this, who will grant them the eyes of their captors, so that their captors will treat them specially. Daniel chapter 1, Daniel did not eat, which happened before this, so some 40 years before this. Daniel chapter 1, Daniel did not, he made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food. Verse 9, God granted Daniel favor and officials. So God is already doing this thing. They're in captivity, and at least some of his people, God will grant them compassion and favor. Jeremiah 42. I think it's chapter 41. They come up to Jeremiah and say, should we go to Egypt or not? Jeremiah prays to God. 10 days later, he comes back. He says, don't go. Stay here. Don't fear them, because God can have compassion. The king have compassion on them and put them back in land. So God can do it. In fact, he does do it. I'm not sure, but I think this is another illustration. Here, the king of the captives, he's treated nicely. Our version, this New American, he receives favor. That is the idea. Is God working behind the scenes? I'm pretty sure he is here, though it doesn't say it. Even if he's not here, it might be a horrible situation, and you might be some kind of captive. But God can work it so that your captor, the one who's standing in front of you, who has the whip, who has the gun, who has whatever it is, can actually end up showing compassion on you. God can do it. We see that over. Talk about this sometimes. Child Protective Services is at your door. Do you lie? No. And do you, if I hear, Jonathan, that you've lied, I'm going to say, because you never know what you're going to do in that situation. Okay? I know it's a lie to lie ever. Right? What will be my problem in that situation? It will have been what? Lack of faith. In a things, but one of them is God can work in that. I'm not saying they're all nasty, but say you get a nasty one knocking on the door. God can work in that person right then. I don't know how that works. Here's at least you should say God gives authority. But somebody who's taking control, the rapist knocks on the door, says, where's the wife and kids? Do you lie? You better not. And I'm not saying I know the whole situation, but I do know that God, if God can work with one person to change them to have compassion and say, look, walk away right now, then he can do that in that situation. And even if he doesn't, I don't want to have also sinned, right? So just bear. So far we've horrible scenarios. All right. Comment or question on that? I'll move on to Daniel 7. Because chronologically, Daniel 7 comes before Daniel 5. Daniel 4 and 5 go together as a theme. Daniel chapter 7 of Babylon. So we are down from external. 552 BC is the first year of Belshazzar, which means there are 13 more years before Cyrus takes over, and he says, go home. Okay? End of the light, or at the end of the tunnel, as far as their exile. Saw a dream. In the visions of his mind. So Daniel 7, 8, and 12 are Daniel. So chapters 1 through 6 are the kings of the world acknowledge the king of the world, Daniel. But chapters 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 are Daniel himself has visions. There's a theme difference. And here's his first vision that we have recorded as it comes out. The first year of Belshazzar, the king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream, visions as he lay on his bed, and he wrote the dream down of it. It's pretty detailed for a summary. I think I would have liked more details, except that I suspect that those details were not necessary and would only confuse me further. Right? Because it seems that he kept the I know, and I'm not going to bother you with the rest because I know all of this. All right. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision, behold, 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. All right, you guys know. I know he's like ready to. In fact, I want him to teach this. I want him to stand up right now and teach it just to see how well we've thoroughly gone over this. Where am I going to go? Especially if you've done the questions. Where am I going to go? I go from Daniel 7. Where do I go?
All the other places. I'm far too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm with you. Children have a way. So I'm going to go to Revelation. Go to Revelation 17 because they talk about the same things. But before we get there, I will just read from you in Revelation 17. I'll just read it. In Daniel, he sees a beast come up out of the sea. This is in Revelation. John sees a beast in the sea. S-E-E-S-E. John sees a beast come out of the sea. In Revelation 17, verse 15, the waters which you saw where the sits are the peoples, the multitudes, and the nations, and the tongues. My point is, in prophecy, in these visions, in these apocalyptic visions, the waters out of which this beast comes are the nations. So you got nations of people. Comes a certain people, right? Verse 2. There are 4 winds of the heavens stirring up the great sea. It doesn't say it here. It doesn't say it anywhere. So it's just the peoples. 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion. 4 nations. There was Babylon, there was the Medo-Persians, there was Greece, and then Rome. Pretty much everybody interprets these the same way. The lion. The first beast was a lion. Pretty much everybody interprets this. In fact, when I say pretty much everybody, even dispensationalists do. Okay, get that. So pretty much everybody gets. Yeah, this is Babylon. It had wings like an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand like 2 feet like a man. I can only think that this is some reference to Daniel 4, where a man turns into an animal, and the animal receives back his mind and turns back into a man. That's Daniel 4. That's what we just read. Here, it has wings like an eagle, off, and it's given a mind like a man. If I'm wrong about that, I just don't know what it is. Most people, myself included, understand this to be a reference to Medo-Persia, which the Medes were always not as strong as and in subjection to the Persians, essentially. They weren't always in subjection to the Persians. But generally speaking, the Medo-Persians, the Persians were stronger. Okay? So it would be maybe some reference to the Persians, the lopsided nation, right? Verse 5, it was raised up on one side, 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. It's a ferocious, it rips and tears and kills. And it's told to arise and devour more. Verse 6, which had wings on its back. Leopards are slow, aren't they, Nikolai? Is that true? No. Right. Leopards are fast. This fast beast had wings, which makes him faster. And it doesn't have only 2 wings, it's super speedy, fast. In chapter 8, talking about this, there's a male goat coming from the west over the surface of the ground. You look out, or you've seen cartoons. When Roadrunner is running, where is he? Not on. You see these wheels just spinning. That's how we, when we draw things, depict somebody going really fast, okay? That seems to be the point here. Chapter 7, chapter 7. After this, I kept looking in the night, 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, extreme giant teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder of its teeth, and it was different from all the other beasts that were before it. Now there's a focus on this, within this 4th beast, on the horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold another horn. So you got 10 horns plus 1, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the were pulled up by its roots. Just remember this for later. You've got 10 plus 1 equals, anybody can do this. That's 11. Minus 3 is how much? 8. Just remember that. You end up at 8, okay? This horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, uttering great boasts. I kept looking, and the hair of his flames, its wheels were a burning fire, a river of fire was flowing and coming out before him. In other words, this one have power, but he's ferocious. He can be merciful, but when it comes to his judgment, you don't want to receive it. And before him, thousands upon thousands were attending him, myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court. This is a judgment scene. I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain. The body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming, and he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion was everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom was one which will not be destroyed. We'll stop here for now. When is this fulfilled? Anybody remember? Jesus Christ quotes verse 13, and it's the last thing he says before they condemn him to be crucified. They're seeking false witnesses. Seek, 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 seek. Jesus kept silent. The high priest said to them, I adjure you by the living God, you tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, you have said it yourself, nevertheless I tell you. Now he quotes. Actually, he says first, hereafter you will see, and now he quotes, the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming on the cloud of heaven. Quoting Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. So from now on, you don't ever have to worry about when Daniel chapter 7 was fulfilled, because we don't even have to go through history to figure this out. Jesus says it's the same. So from there you can actually reason back. Okay, so he's in the 4th beast. That's the 4th nation, which is Rome. So the 3rd beast, which is the leopard, is Greece. The 2nd beast is the bear that's lopsided on one side, is Medo-Persia. And the lion is Babylon, which is just like Daniel 2. Most people get this. There is then a focus. Verse 15. Daniel says, as for me, my spirit was distressed within me. We're going to go on for just a couple more minutes. It's almost quarter. Kept alarming me. I approached one of those who were standing by and began asking him the exact meaning of all this. Wouldn't we all like to know, right? So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These are great beasts, which are 4 in number. 4 kings will arise from the earth. In verse 17, there are 4 kings. In verse 23, the 4th beast is a 4th kingdom. So sometimes, and in this passage, king and kingdom is used interchangeably. Sometimes within this passage itself, king is just a king. We'll see that in a little bit. He will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom. Verse 17. These are great beasts, 4 in number, and are 4 kings who will rise from the earth. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, for all ages to come. Then I desired to know the exact meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron, its claws of bronze, and which devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder of its feet, and the meaning of the 10 horns which were on its head, and the other horn which came, and before which 3 of them fell, namely the horn which had eyes, and a mouth uttering great boasts, which was larger in appearance than its associates. I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints and overpowering them, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one, and the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. The main point of Daniel 7 is the saints win. This is not a baseball report. This is not the newspaper. Aren't they a baseball team? Oh, man. So long. Yeah, I'm glad, because I've gotten that far where I don't even know who is who anymore. Although I do know who the Yankees are. Okay. All right. So, saints win. That is the point. He'll say in verse 23, the 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth and tread it down and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom of 10 kings will rise, and another will rise after them, and he will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue the 3 kings. He will speak out against the Most High, and wear down the saints of the highest one. And he will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given into his time for times and half a time. But the saints will win. The court will sit for judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty and the dominion and the greatness of all the kingdoms over the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the dominions will serve and obey him. Saints win. That's the message. But the subjects of the kingdom will first be persecuted. That's also in here. That king is going to make war with the saints. Now, just give me a minute. Be patient. Have you ever seen this chart before? Any prophecy about the Messianic kingdom, and Israel initially would have thought would apply to their return from exile. They will not be informed until Daniel 2, 7, 9, and 11 to 12, written in exile, that there will actually be a gap between the return from exile and the glorious future. So here's another one of those passages where they find out there's going to be a gap. And what else do they find out? This glorious future is glorious, but is not before now. Actually, it's hinted at in Ezekiel. But really before now, you don't know. Wow. This future where he paints these beautiful pictures, and the peaceful saints will always win. Yes, but implied in that is there's going to be some fighting going on. Okay, so now they're really getting it. Wow. Are going to be persecuted. Again, the people who are reading this will not think of church spiritual Israel. They won't. They'll think, oh, some extension of the ethnic kingdom. But later on, we'll understand it's talking about the church and the kingdom. All right. I can do this quickly, so I will. And if we need to go over it, I can. That's absolutely fine. Y'all email me and say, hey, we need to go over that again. But I do want to... All right, the saints win. And so what we have going on here is the subjects will first be compared. If you compare Daniel 2 and 7 with Revelation 13, you have the same beasts. You all remember this. I'm trying to find an illustration that works. I just never can really. Daniel sees the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the beast because he's looking to the future. Right now he's in Babylon. He will never, well, he will see Medo-Persia. He'll see the bear. He won't see the leopard or the beast. John, in Revelation 13, sees a beast come out of the sea, and this beast has characteristics of all of these nations before them. Why would Rome have all these characteristics? Because each of these was subsumed. Is that the word I'm looking for?
I think so. Folded into.
Yeah, folded into each all the following nations, right? So there's that. And I've said this 1,000 times. I think that you guys have this in your mind. You might not. I need to know if you are not, or you can call me or send smoke signals. Revelation 17 talks about there will be, if you pay attention, 8 kings in Revelation 17. How many kings did we end up with in Daniel 7? 8 kings, right? In Revelation 20, by the way, in Daniel 7, who receives the kingdom? 3 times it is stated, the saints receive the kingdom. Okay, verse 13, I kept looking in the night visions, behold the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming up, he came up to the Ancient Days and was presented before him. To him was given dominion, a glory, and a kingdom. Okay, so he does receive, in the vision, this one, Jesus quotes this, he's talking about himself, but in the rest, in verse 18, the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever. Well, that's kind of interesting. Verse 22, the saints of the highest one, the saints took possession in this vision. In verse 27, the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one during this time of persecution. The point is, Jesus sets up this kingdom, and these saints are already in it, and the language actually means they're going to win. That's it. They will. Yeah, they'll be persecuted, but they'll win. They'll receive the kingdom. They're already received the kingdom. They're already in the kingdom. The language is merely saying, and they will be, those who overcome will be the ones who are successful. In the end of Revelation, chapter 20, after 1,000 years, is it after? Yep, after 1,000 years, it says that the ones who had been beheaded for their testimony of Jesus and because of the Word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image and had not received the mark of their forehead on their hand, and they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. And Revelation says it reigned. Daniel says they received the kingdom. Okay, and to them was given dominion and authority and power. That's what it says in Daniel, and Revelation says 20. I know I'm going through this insanely quickly, and we need to spend a lot more time on it sometime, but my point is, I am of the conviction that Daniel and Revelation are talking about the same thing. I even think that Revelation 21 and 22 are also, but I won't jump up and down and raise a stink if somebody thinks differently from me than that. I will say this real quick. We need to turn to Matthew 26. Last passage. Last point. And I really mean last. Not like, oh, I forgot one more. This is the end of the slideshow. Matthew 26, verse 64. Jesus said to him, "You have said it yourself. Nevertheless, I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man at the right hand of the power coming on the clouds of heaven." That's New American Standard. Hereafter. I have a footnote, New American Standard. From now on. Does anybody have anything else besides hereafter or from now on? What are you reading out of? New King James? Not New. You are New King James.
Hereafter.
Hereafter. Hereafter or from now on. Now read this. But I say to you, in the future, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One coming on the clouds of heaven. Does that sound similar? Does it sound different?
Different enough.
Exactly. It works. It's actually a viable translation of this word. It's literally on the now. It's an idiom. Okay, how do we translate that? Yeah, in the future. Right, it works. But what did you say? Different enough. It's different enough. To what? What is this? This allows a little wiggle room. Premillennialist. So I was doing a comparative reading one day, including the 1984 NIV and the 2011 from now on. That works. That's better. So I wrote the smart one. I said, what do you know about this? And he said, I don't know. I'm talking about Rick. And so I encouraged him. I said, write somebody. You know the people to write. So he wrote Douglas Moo, Translation Committee for the NIV, 2011. On the change, I said, Rick, please write about this. His reply, I don't recall our discussion on this verse, our being the Translation Committee. However, as you say, from now on, is arguably a more straightforward rendering of the Greek. Yeah, that's better. I suspect that we also are reflecting the trend of recent scholarship to view this promise not as related to the second coming, but to the installation of Jesus as the Son of Man in glory at his ascension. They get it. They're starting to get it. Recent scholarship is trending toward understanding, yeah, when Jesus said right now, he meant right now. You know, and so at least in this, that doesn't mean they're giving up everything. That means this one verse they had to give up. And even he's admitting, yeah, the grammar really does point in that direction. So there you go. Comments or questions?